Tonight, from Afghanistan to the U.S. border to a rebellion among dissenting Democrats, President Biden's series of setbacks. And China rising. Vice President Kamala Harris's sharp warning against Chinese military and political interference. Plus,
this is double-digit inches in some cases of rain. Unheard of.
What's behind the recent extreme deadly weather and music with a message. Christian singer Danny Gokey's charge to all Christians. All this and more tonight on Faith Nation.
Good evening and welcome to Faith Nation. I'm Jenna Browder.
And I'm John Jessup. The situation continues to deteriorate in Afghanistan. This morning, mayhem around Kabul as evacuations ramp up for Americans and their Afghan allies.
Meanwhile, President Biden says he will stick with the August 31st deadline to get everyone out. This as he faces a growing number of crises at home, too. CBN's Tara Mergener explains.
For President Biden, the last few weeks have brought mounting problems. After a popular start, his young presidency now struggling after the fall of the Afghan government, a rebounding COVID-19 pandemic, and even dissension in his own party. Facing a barrage of negative headlines and criticism from both sides of the aisle, Biden has only a week to get Americans and allies out of Afghanistan in the face of an empowered Taliban.
The president just announced a firm withdrawal date of August 31st. I can tell you there's no way we can humanly get all of our American citizens and Afghan partners out of country by that time.
Analysts say the administration is hoping success at home, particularly containing COVID, might distract voters from the botched withdrawal. But as vaccination rates slowly rise in the U.S., so are the infections.
Delta is out there looking for you.
On Capitol Hill, rancor in the ranks. With House Democrats teeing up, the Senate passed $3.5 trillion package of policy priorities, 9 moderate party members initially threatening to tank it.
Some of the most vulnerable Democrats in the House realize that they're going to get attacked for voting for the budget and a lot of the spending that comes along with that.
Meanwhile, the southern border crisis growing ever worse as migrants stream into the U.S. in record numbers, largely unfettered. Crime is surging across America, and progressives are fuming over Biden's pick of Rahm Emanuel for U.S. ambassador to Japan. A USA Today poll shows Biden's job approval is taking a tumble too. 41% approve, 55% disapprove. While he still has the backing of most Democrats, only a third of independents now think he's doing a good job. In Washington, I'm Tara Mergener, CBN News.
All right, thank you, Tara. Disappointment today also for world leaders. President Biden's decision not to extend the withdrawal deadline wasn't what many of the Group of 7 or G7 leaders were hoping for. Biden and his counterparts of the world's leading economies met virtually this morning amid widespread disapproval of his handling of the withdrawal by some of America's closest allies. Complaints have come from Britain, France, Germany, and other G7 nations.
Well, today's airlifts reflect some of the highest numbers yet. According to the White House, U.S. forces evacuated more than 21,000 people in the 24-hour period ending early this morning. The U.S. evacuated about 16,000 the day before. When it comes to Americans, Pentagon Press Secretary John Kirby says as of today, U.S. forces have evacuated around 4,000 American passport holders and their families. He expects that number to continue to grow in the coming days. Military leaders at the Pentagon talked about their priorities today in light of the president's decision.
There's been no change to the timeline of the mission, which is to have this completed by the end of the month. We continue to make progress every day in getting Americans, as well as SIV applicants and vulnerable Afghans, out.
And the deadline stands. President Biden's decision to hold to that August 31st deadline faces fierce opposition on all fronts.
Well, that opposition includes Congressman Mike Waltz. He's a former U.S. Army officer who represents Florida's 6th congressional district, and he joins us now.
Welcome to Faith Nation, Congressman Waltz. It's great to have you with us this evening. So what is your reaction to the president's decision to not move that August 31st deadline?
Well, it's both heartless, it's cruel, and it's clueless in terms of the disconnect between the reality on the ground. Look, there was overwhelming condemnation today, Republican and Democrat across the board, for not extending that deadline. In a briefing with the Secretary of State, the Secretary of Defense, and the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs and the Director of National Intelligence, there continues to be a total disconnect between what President Biden is saying in public, that everything's fine and going to be fine, and then what we're hearing in private from his own team in classified briefings, which is that where they admit that Americans and our Afghan allies are being hunted down. They're in danger, and that al-Qaeda is going to come roaring back. It's not a matter of if, but just when. So at the end of the day, America is less safe, less respected as part of this decision, and less feared by our own allies. This is a disaster of historic proportions that will be felt for years to come.
Congressman, you have a long military background, as we can see behind you in those coins on your wall. You're noted also as being the first Green Beret to be elected to Congress. Today, you were joined by your fellow Republicans to address the crisis. For those who did not get a chance to hear it, let's go ahead and listen to some of your comments.
Well, this Congress is going to lead. Our offices right now are operations centers, calling gate guards, calling Kabul airport, guiding people through, telling them how to avoid Taliban checkpoints, our own Congress. It's unbelievable, the lack of leadership. So I 100% agree. That blood is and will be on Joe Biden's hands, and this Congress will hold him accountable.
Congressman, care to expand on your message, and is that also the message of your fellow vets?
It absolutely was. This is deeply personal for us. I've been successful in getting some of Afghans and American citizens through enemy lines and to the United States. I lost one who was captured at a Taliban checkpoint and beheaded along with members of his family. These are people that stood by American soldiers and took bullets alongside us for freedom and for our way of life and to fight against Islamic extremism. So just the cruelty, the apathy, and the heartlessness coming out of the White House and the lack of leadership is just jaw-dropping, frankly. But from a national security standpoint, the blow to American credibility, think about what people in the Ukraine or Taiwan facing China or other places are thinking now about whether America will stand with them. Think about so many veterans now that are questioning, and Gold Star families, of whether their sacrifice was in vain. Think of the 9/11 victims. We're just weeks away from the 20th anniversary of 9/11, and yet we're being dictated to by the Taliban 20 years later, and al-Qaeda is going to be back again for some future 9/11. So the blood that's going to be on Biden's hands is not just the Americans and Afghans trapped in Kabul right now as we speak, but that future attack on the homeland and future American soldiers that are going to have to go back once again and deal with the threat of terrorism, but this time with no bases, no local allies, and with a Taliban that's armed to the teeth with our own equipment that we allowed to fall in their hands. So yes, my fellow veterans and I and every American should be furious and should be outraged right now.
Congressman, let's talk about our troops for a minute. You know, we are seeing some amazing images come out of Afghanistan. Men and women in uniform showing really true heart in the midst of such difficult circumstances. You know, despite the politics, there is so much to be said for our service members.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want them to hear me loud and clear. For those that are there now and those that have been there the last 2 decades, look, your sacrifice was not in vain. We kept America safe for an entire generation that didn't have to worry about planes flying into buildings or suicide bombers on school buses. But, you know, unfortunately, we're right back to September 10th, 2001 again, but worse. For all of the reasons that I just described. You know, our veterans, our men and women in uniform will always do their job. What's so amazing is the ones who have been there are now working around the lack of leadership of our own government and working around the bureaucracy and organizing groups to go get our allies out and get Americans out on their own. That's how dedicated they are to this mission and to keeping our homeland safe and to keeping terrorism over there rather than in our backyard.
Yeah. All right, Congressman Mike Waltz of Florida's 6th District, thank you so much for your service and for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Well, as the Delta variant rages across the country, more Americans are getting their vaccines. Daily deaths now topping 1,000 as hospitals struggle to keep up with their patients. Even children are being hospitalized at record numbers, and many of them, about half, don't have pre-existing conditions. All of this is pushing people to roll up their sleeves.
Nationwide, we've gotten a total of 6 million shots in arms in the last 7 days. That's the highest 7-day total in over a month and a half. And at the end of last week, for 3 straight days, we got more than 1 million shots in arms each day. That's the first time that's happened since June.
And the White House COVID response team is calling this a pandemic of the unvaccinated, pointing to the fact that about 90% of those who are hospitalized are unvaccinated.
Well, New York State has its first female governor, Kathy Hochul. She takes office after former Governor Andrew Cuomo resigned 2 weeks ago amid alleged sexual harassment scandals. Hochul, a Democrat and former member of Congress from Western New York, took the oath just after midnight in a brief private event overseen by the state's chief judge, Janet DeFiore. A ceremonial swearing-in happened later in the day at the New York State Capitol. Governor Hochul told reporters she wants to change the culture of Albany.
This week's catastrophic weather is bringing the climate change debate back into the spotlight. The combination of flash floods, wildfires, and hurricanes all used as evidence that the Earth's climate is getting more volatile.
CBN's Brody Carter brings us the latest on recent events with perspectives on both sides of the environmental debate.
22 people are dead and several remain missing after Saturday's flash floods washed through several mid-Tennessee counties just west of Nashville.
2 babies that got killed, 2 twins, and then 2 more got killed.
A weather event called a training thunderstorm dumped 17 inches of rain in just 24 hours, shattering the state record for a single-day rainfall.
When thunderstorms keep regenerating in one area over and over and over again.
In North Carolina, floods also led to 5 fatalities in the western part of the state last week due to aftermath from Tropical Storm Fred.
The precipitation data from across the world, that heavy extreme rainfall rates and extreme rainfall events are increasing over the past 100 years, or more.
International headlines agree, pointing to humans as the force behind climate change, leading to disasters from major flooding in Europe to wildfires and droughts in the western states, and stronger storms raising water both inland and along coastal areas.
With climate change, those extremes are expected to continue and perhaps become more frequent.
But not everyone agrees. The Washington Post says that climate change is barging through America's front door. Why is that wrong?
I don't understand what they're talking about. Do you really think that something you did not create, you have the ability to control? Do you really believe that?
Joe Bastardi at weatherbell.com refutes the human elements when it comes to climate change.
How is a climate optimum before, now a climate emergency? Makes no sense.
He says it was both hotter and colder in 1936, with more hurricanes and tropical storms off the Atlantic coast than we're seeing in 2021.
This is the first time in recorded history that I can find that you have had 5 cyclones hit the United States and not one of them be a hurricane.
And the world keeps turning with 3 more storms forming off the coast. One carries a 60% chance of strengthening in the Caribbean before hitting Texas.
The tropical activity is certainly above normal and is for this date not unheard of for this time of year, but definitely above normal, and we are expecting that to continue through the rest of the year.
As the nation braces for more bad weather, the debate over climate change continues. Brody Carter, CBN News.
Hey, if you're tired and exhausted all day, you can't think clearly, and you really just need a cup or even a pot of coffee to get through your day, then join me, Dr. Josh Axe, for this new series where I'm going to teach you how to transform your diet and use essential oils and supplements to get a better night's sleep.
Wake up to your best life. Call 1-800-700-7000 to get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
It's about the competition.
I kind of put that pressure on myself, and I think people had expectations.
It's about overcoming.
We use this phrase all the time, keep chopping, keep practicing hard.
It's about going the distance.
You know, I think as a father, it's my job, you know, to lead. Just be the best husband and father I can be.
Watch Going the Distance with Sean Brown Saturday night at 7:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Orphans Promise is committed to loving and serving at-risk children, to helping keep families together, and to creating opportunities for strong and sustainable communities around the world. We're working in over 60 countries around the world, and with your help, we can do even more. There's an old African proverb I love that says, if you want to run fast, run alone. But if you want to run far, run together. At Orphans Promise, we want to run far so we can touch the lives of as many orphaned and vulnerable children as possible. But we don't want to go alone. We're out to change the world, one child, one family, one community at a time. Will you join us?
Welcome back. Vice President Kamala Harris overseas and delivering a sharp rebuke to China for its incursions in the South China Sea. Her warning included words like coercion and intimidation. And she had a message for American allies in the region, too, saying we will stand with them in an enduring relationship.
And joining us now for more about the importance of United States-Southeast Asia relations is Prime Minister Salih Hudayar of East Turkistan in exile. Welcome to you, Mr. Prime Minister. Your homeland is a place that China refers to as Xinjiang province, is right there in the middle of everything. Tell us about the situation with China first.
Yes, East Turkestan has been effectively occupied by China since December 22nd, 1949. Over the decades, China has been engaging in their brutal campaign of colonization and more recently genocide with over 3 million people, according to the U.S. Department of Defense, locked up in concentration camps. Of course, East Turkestan is of strategic vital importance to China. It's the cornerstone of the Chinese government's Belt and Road Initiative to essentially achieve Chinese domination, as you know, becoming a global becoming the sole global superpower in terms of military, economic, and political control and influence. So it's crucial that the United States continues to support, the countries that are under threat of China, that are under Chinese occupation, like Tibet and East Turkestan.
Along those lines, many political and military observers have said in recent days that the Taliban is emboldening nations like China. And one former general even said that he wouldn't be surprised to see China try to take Taiwan. What do you think China might do in the coming months or even years?
Well, China is becoming aggressive in terms of its approach to Taiwan. In fact, many state media, as you know, gloated that the U.S. is now weak. And that it has now, the ability to take over Taiwan, given that the U.S. is not even able to support its allies in Afghanistan. In the case of the Uyghurs in Afghanistan, what China is doing is it's using its influence with the Taliban in an effort to portray Uyghurs as terrorists, while at the same time, Uyghurs that had previously fled, East Turkestan to Afghanistan, they are at threat of being deported. And these Uyghurs are ones that have been there, since 1949.
And finally, Mr. Prime Minister, what warning would you give to the Biden administration and other world leaders in their dealings with China and its ambitions?
Well, what's happening in East Turkestan is a great example, in fact, the best example of what will happen to other places if China gets its way. You know, what's happening in Hong Kong was what was happening in East Turkestan 20, 30 years ago. And now this situation is developing to where Hong Kong is becoming more like, you know, East Turkestan day by day. And then at the same time, Tibet as well. And now China has gotten to a point where because of the lack of, you know, strong action by the international community, they are able to openly threaten, you know, military force against, you know, U.S. allies like Taiwan and others.
Well, we certainly appreciate you keeping our eyes out on the situation. Prime Minister Saleh Hudayar, thank you so much for your time, and we'll be right back after the break.
Daddy?
Yeah, buddy?
How many nickels are in a dollar?
There are 20 nickels in a dollar.
How do birds fly? Does milk really make my bones stronger?
Yeah.
Daddy, when we die, will we go to heaven?
Do you have the answer to life's biggest question? Call the 700 Club. We'll help you find answers to the important questions life brings your way.
Watch breaking news, in-depth exclusive stories and programs from health to entertainment you won't find anywhere else. The CBN News Channel, a perspective you can trust. Enjoy credible news reporting from around the world. Discover inspiring programs and stories of hope, all in one place from a Christian perspective. The CBN News Channel, a perspective you can trust. To watch the CBN News Channel, download the app or visit cbnnewschannel.com.
Hello, I'm Dr. David Perlmutter, board-certified neurologist and #1 New York Times bestselling author. Wouldn't it be great to boost your energy, eliminate brain fog, and even reverse brain disease? Well, you can, and I'm going to show you how, along with some of the world's most well-respected brain experts in this DVD, Protect Your Brain.
Get Protect Your Brain, a free DVD only from the Christian Broadcasting Network, featuring experts on the cutting edge of neuroscience and brain health.
No matter how many times you've failed in the past, you really can do this.
In Protect Your Brain, you'll discover simple strategies to keep your brain young and healthy. Improve your memory. Discover the gut-brain connection. In Protect Your Brain, get your free copy at cbn.com or call 1-800-700-7000.
If you want to improve the quality of your life, get the DVD Protect Your Brain and get it today.
Many Afghan Christians and other religious minorities are praying for a miracle to protect their families from the Taliban's brutality. Jennifer Wishen has more on what's being done.
Afghan Christians, non-Muslims, and their families face death by the Taliban. That's why religious freedom advocates from across the country are working around the clock to help as many as possible flee their country. And for more on this grave situation, I'm joined by the chairwoman of the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom, Nadine Mayenza. Nadine, tell us, for Christians and other religious minorities in Afghanistan right now today, what are they facing?
Well, they're facing a really a difficult future. Most of them are, many of them are trying to leave. They're scared. It's very difficult to get out. You need to get on a list, a manifest on a plane to get to even in the airport. It's difficult to leave the borders. So there's a lot of fear among all the religious minority communities. Unfortunately, so many had left over the years that the numbers had dwindled down. So, they're talking about like 276, there used to be 250,000. So we were talking about smaller numbers. The Christian converts, however, that number has been increasing over the years, and they're maybe at the highest risk. And so there's a lot of fear among that community of what's next for them, and will the Taliban be targeting them?
The Taliban, particularly harsh against Christian converts, former Muslims. America has been in the country for 20 years now. If we look back, how were religious freedom conditions before this latest takeover by the Taliban?
Well, they have been deteriorating, certainly in the last couple of years. And so it was unfortunate that we went into this situation where we're negotiating to leave while conditions are getting worse. And from what I saw from all agreements, it didn't really include any religious freedom protections in those agreements. So it was already looking stark, but the very people that our presence had inspired so much hope, with so many of these impressive women and religious leaders who had been so strong and really fighting for a future for their country. They're trying to flee because they know they're going to be targets if they don't. And we are responsible to try to get out all of them before we leave.
We know the scene at the airport is very chaotic. We know getting Americans out is difficult. Afghans who have helped Americans is difficult. Where do religious minorities fall on the totem pole, if you will, in terms of priority in getting them out?
The Christian community in particular has been so generous in raising money for planes and saying, get anyone on these planes that needs to get out. So it's not like they're Christian funded and only Christians getting on. If anything, half of them are women. You know, a lot of the other religious minorities were seeking out to get on these planes. So the good news is a lot of people are working together. There are people that have people on the ground trying to help them get to these high-risk people get to the airport. So, you know, I've seen people in government and outside of government just really working 24/7 to do everything they can to help the people that want to leave to be able to leave.
It is an incredibly dire situation. I know so many people around the world are praying for the work that USURF is doing and so many others. Thank you so much for this update, Nadine.
Thanks so much for having me.
I am Regent's first ROTC graduate student.
I'm Ephraim Graham, and this is Studio 5. Cruise with me as I discover the good things happening in the world of music, sports, television, and movies.
The fact that Ryan Coogler was going to be directing the film, I knew that something special was going to happen.
We'll chat with artists at the forefront of entertainment and explore the connection between popular culture and faith.
I asked my pastor, I said, well, does that mean I'm supposed to be a preacher? He says, well, no, you already have a pulpit.
Wednesday night at 8:30 on the CBN News Channel.
How'd you like to get a redo on your health, on your body, on your arteries, so you could have the energy you had 20 years ago? The great news is you can. I'm Dr. Mike Roizen, chair of the Wellness Institute at the Cleveland Clinic. I've written 4 New York Times bestsellers. But even better than having to read all that, you can listen to this DVD and watch it. Protect your heart? Yes, you can. Here's how.
Go to cbn.com or call 1-800-700-7000 for your free copy of Protect Your Heart. Let the medical experts show you their new discoveries on how to avoid heart disease and even reverse it. Easy steps to uncover the hidden dangers in your medicine cabinet, reduce stress, and get a complete do-over for your health. Call 1-800-700-7000. That's 1-800-700-7000. Or go to cbn.com to claim your free copy of Protect Your Heart.
Finally tonight, Christian singer, songwriter, and American Idol alum Danny Gokey is out with a new album.
It's called Jesus People, and he says he hopes it encourages Christians in their faith.
Every man and every woman, oh yeah, every city, every nation.
Beautiful voice. Well, Gokey says his God-inspired message is hope in Christ alone. And we'll leave it there. Thanks for joining us.
Hope to see you again tomorrow.